Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Nick Raeburn, who also goes by the name of the Video Nerd, or That's Video Nerd, as he's got out today. So, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. And this is going to be one of those practical sessions that people need to get their pen and paper out, or their iPad or whatever, and take notes, I think. Before we get into it, where can people find you?
Pretty much 24/7 LinkedIn. I pretty much live there. Yes, sleep, bathe, eat, breathe, live LinkedIn. So if you need to get hold of me, just go and check me out on LinkedIn. Easiest way to find me is I've got a nice big pink banner, so you won't miss me in the feed, I don't think.
and you'll notice that Nick's left his sunglasses on his head.
Yes. They're stapled to my head. I had to have them surgically removed.
So give us a little a potted history, because you've done some amazing stuff from a video. You know, you've done videos for what, Elton John, and I mean you've got your video studio. So give us a little story about yourself.
Yeah, so I've always been obsessed by film and story and the moving image from a really young age. Yeah, just sort of naturally gravitated towards that. I actually started out, my career began weirdly enough in I started off by doing construction site safety videos.
Right.
That was my kind of first foray into video, really. And then from there, I progressed to freelancing, and then started to work agency side. And then I left there when my daughter was born. So I decided I want to spend more time with my kids, and set up on my own. And weirdly, that hasn't turned out that way. Yeah, and then progressed from there to running my own business as well. Yeah, worked with the likes of Elton John. We've got a feature film, I think it's still on Netflix at the moment, called Hurricane, that we did all the air-to-air and specialist filming on as well. So if you're really bored, you can go and check that out on Netflix.
Right. So you've got a great track record in doing video. Today we're going to focus on about what salespeople can do to look at video. So if I'm a salesperson, I want to get into it first and foremost. What do I need to do? What's your advice?
I think the biggest fundamental hurdle, I think, with video is it's hugely intimidating for most people. I mean, I've been doing video for over half my life, for about 23 years, I think, and it's only kind of fairly recently. I've directed and produced people from the other side of the lens for years, but it's only fairly recently that I've actually started to produce content for myself and actually switch over to the other side of the camera. And I felt what a lot of people that I would interview felt. It was really intimidating. It was really strange, really alien, really surreal. I think you just have to get used to this kind of weird piece of glass thing being in front of you, and just kind of dive in and get started. And like anything else, you have to kind of, it's like putting reps in at the gym. You have to kind of start making that first video is the biggest first hurdle. Once you've done that, it becomes infinitely easier, because you stop kind of, deliberating and sort of cringing at yourself and thinking, oh, will people like it? Will I say the wrong things? You just have to completely get over that fear. And by doing that first video, that will just naturally, as a consequence of doing that will happen. So,
because when I grew up, the camera, we didn't have a video camera at home. And the camera was one of those things that you kept in a cupboard and you brought out for special occasions. You took a picture, and then when you got to 24 shots, you went down to Boots and you got it developed. And now, of course, what happens is that we fire off shots and take photos and stuff, and it all comes. And I got into actually doing this podcast because I wanted to force myself to do video.
Yeah.
And I think that it's. So why would we get into video? What's the importance of doing? Why, as salespeople and to sell ourselves on products and services, why should we do it?
It's short of being able to smell someone in the room with you, it's the best way of communicating with your audience. You've got there's audio, there's visual, there's a lot of what we do from a video standpoint as well. People don't realize it, but I mean, you do it when you're selling as well. A lot of what you're doing is non-verbal, it's body language, and you can pick up on those cues from your body language. With video, it's a beautiful medium for doing that. And as well, I think with salespeople, whether they realize it or not, they are natural born storytellers. So
Yes.
as a medium, it suits them really, really well. It's just getting them to think a little bit more creatively in terms of how they're applying themselves to that medium. And it's you know, it's practice, and you do need a certain amount of training with it and coaching. And it's just kind of getting comfortable with the process. I think you get to a stage with it, I think, where you understand the mechanics of it and you understand the process of it. And then when you hit that kind of sort of bar, I guess, you become comfortable with it. And that's when your real personality starts to come out and kind of shine. Like a lot of people, when they first start, they kind of clam up and they're kind of very constricted and they're very kind of robotic. And then, you know, after I've done a few videos, they kind of get comfortable with the process and they just, the human side of them starts to come out a bit more, and that's when the magic starts to happen.
So I've got one of these.
Yeah,
I've got one of these, which is for people that is a jobby.
Yeah.
J-O-B-Y, which if you know, it means something else in Scotland. But it is a you know, I actually bought an additional light to go on the top because the light that came with it isn't that very good. And next door, in the room next door, I've actually got a stand with one of those. If you go onto Amazon and look for YouTube, if you want to be a YouTube star, they sell those things, and it's for doing makeup and stuff. But actually, the light on it actually is excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of lighting you can get for video, but generally there's two kinds of light sources. There's hard light sources and soft light sources. The biggest hard light source there is the sun. When you step outside in the sun, it's horrible. You get all those harsh shadows. You can't see it because it's out of shot up here, but I've got a nice big soft light up here. And what soft light will do is it kind of bounces and scatters the light everywhere, so it kind of fills in all the imperfections on your face. If you've got, you know, kind of wrinkly skin or acne or any kind of creases in the skin, it fills in all those imperfections and just makes your skin look wonderful and glowing and beautiful, darling. Like
and what is that? Because I know you named it. You did a video the other day, and
it's this particular one is a Falcon Eyes. It's a really low profile light, so it's really thin at the back. I do have an Aperture 120D, which is next door, but it's got a massive softbox on it, and when it's in this room, it takes up about half the room. It is huge. So I bought this one because it's really kind of low profile and fits in this room quite well. But there's lots of myriad different types of lights, and I think the thing is when you're purchasing a light as well, don't skimp on a light, because if you buy a decent quality light, it should last you a lifetime. So yeah, don't skimp on them. I know a lot of people kind of favor ring lights as well, and they can be quite nice. But I think it's getting into the habit. Like if you're doing a lot of video content, it's quite nice to have a permanent setup somewhere. Like I've got a permanent setup in here.
Yeah, I've got a permanent setup next door,
yeah. And then I've got a permanent setup in the studio next door as well. And that means, you know, when you get an idea, you just, you know, you kind of have a flash of inspiration. You can just go there, everything's set up, ready to go, and you just hit record. It's just so much simpler.
And one of the things that I don't know what you think about using the front or the back camera. Most cases you can you would use the front camera because you can actually see yourself. But I know that you also recommend that you put a little bit of tape where the lens is, so you talk to the tape, not talk to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm guilty of doing this at the moment because I'm looking at my screen where you are at the moment, and if I actually move my screen down here, so this is what we call your eye line. So my actual eye line should be here, which is looking straight down the lens, because that's my audience and that's who I'm talking to. But if I'm talking to you and you're up here, my eye line wanders. So it's you need a fixed point to permanently look at. And if you're doing this as well, like if you're recording and you're kind of looking around while you're recording, it just makes you look shifty and weird. So have a fixed point to focus on, which is generally straight down the lens, and then it's just easier to
so we've had a question from Simon Hodgkins. LED or older soft boxes?
LEDs are going to be lower power draw. They're going to be less hot as well. We used to use red heads back in the days, and dado lights are really good as well, but they do a range of LEDs now. But yeah, I would say we've we've kind of crossed that boundary now, and we've gone to the LED phase. So a lot of people still use softboxes. The 120D that I've got next door is what we call a cob LED. So it's a really big, powerful LED, and it does kick out quite a bit of heat, and that's got quite a large softbox on it as well. But yes, it's horses for courses. You can use what are called honeycombs as well, which we stick over the front of the softbox, and the honeycomb will stop the light scattering and bouncing too much and make it a bit more directional and closed off. So they're really useful as well.
And he asks again, any tips for glasses reflections, which is I have to take my glasses.
Yeah. Either take them off, reposition your light so you know it's not going to be too much glaring too much, or you can use what are called flags as well. So you can put up pieces of card or blackboard to kind of flag off the light that's hitting those glasses. I can't go next door and get them, but I've got a flag kit I could have shown you, which is basically just a load of little squares that you can take out and kind of move around in front of the light to kind of block off the light.
So one of the big changes that's taken place on LinkedIn is this creator mode. And what that means is that now we're going to have if you click somebody's picture, it basically you can have a video behind it. So what's your advice around doing creator mode? Because some people don't even know that the facility is there, let alone actually put one together. So what would you do in terms of video for that?
Yeah, they're actually creator mode and your video cover story are actually two separate things, and I'm fairly sure you can have one turned on without the other, because I think I had access to creator mode initially, and I had that turned on for a couple of weeks, and then I got access to the video cover story component. But yeah, the cover stories are super exciting. They're my best analogy, I think I said to you before we started the call, is that they're kind of like your movie trailer for your profile, really. They're just 30 seconds of pure gold. There's so much content on your profile, and people can kind of build up a picture of who you are through that content. But there's no other piece of content on your profile that does the job that video cover story will in kind of getting the audience to know, like, and trust you from playing that content. And you can just have so much fun with it. I've seen some really creative cover stories already that people are kind of knocking out. But yeah, you've got kind of 30 seconds. So the way I've kind of broken it down, I've got a free resource which is on my. If you head over to my profile on the featured section, I think you may have to scroll across and go to see all. There's a free PDF on there that you can download, which will kind of give you a breakdown of how to script and produce your own cover story. But the way I've broken it down is basically just really simply into a kind of intro, middle, and end. So kind of 10-second chunks for each of those. And then for your intro, kind of use that as a kind of brief introduction and sort of talk about your past experiences and how they've allowed you to get to where you are. And then kind of talk about how you help your particular, prospective client. And then at the end, we do as a kind of call to action. So if you've got any kind of free resources, or you want them to follow you, or you want to drive them to a particular website or something like that, then you can put that at the end of the video. But it's quite nice. We're currently producing one at the moment for a client, and his profile is all kind of themed around underwater stuff, because he nearly drowned in a pool as a kid, or drowned in the sea. So his one we've shot, he shot it all underwater, and for the intro part of it, we got him to put some plexiglass up and kind of push his face up against the glass and kind of tap on the glass, because the first 3 seconds of the video is you'll see that kind of looped section. So it's kind of him kind of tapping on the screen effectively to kind of draw you in. So having something there that's kind of a hook, like you would do when you post something, to kind of get people to, impulsively click on it, like whether it be a bit of text or some sort of pattern interrupt or some, funky colors to attract people's attention to actually click on the video is really important.
We've had a question from Neil. Would you recommend getting a cheap colored backdrop from eBay, Amazon, or just use your office background? And I think, Nick, in terms of, think of it, in terms of your first go and the average person, what do you think? I
would say, if you're going to go down that route, either get what we call a cyc, which will be a kind of coloured panel. I've got a grey cyc next door, which absorbs light really well, so you can kind of light it really nicely, or get a green screen. Green screens are not as intimidating as you think to use. The beauty of a green screen is you can put any backdrop behind it. So I think it's kind of thinking about, I'm always of the opinion, don't buy cheap and buy twice. Do it once, do it right, and then you'll have that thing for life, and you'll learn as you go along with it. So I think it's a case of don't just do an impulse buy and buy something cheap for a quick fix solution. Buy something that's gonna sustain you for a longer period of time. A green screen or a cyc is the way to go.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You can even I've got one here actually. So I've got a little. This is an Elgato one, a pop-up one. There we go.
There we go.
I can just pull. If I need to whack the green screen behind me, I can just pull that up. Easy.
And so just go for the straight green screen. I mean, green screens will always be, if you're going to start using video,
yeah,
you're going to use it at some stage.
Yeah, and it allows you to to be really creative, put yourself in kind of any environment. And if you start to combine those with props and stuff, you stick an astronaut's helmet on or a goldfish bowl, you can pretend you're on the moon, or just you can start to get silly and creative with your content. I think that's the trouble, is that people, they start to create video content, and I think once you start to enjoy the process and understand it, that's when you can start, kind of flexing your creative muscles and just starting to go a bit zany and off the wall with stuff. That's the kind of content that, think about it in terms of the kind of content you like to watch when you're kind of scrolling through the feed. I see so much kind of talking head content where people just kind of stationary and yeah. They're kind of stationary and they're sat talking to camera. But even something as simple as learning to edit, which is something I tell my students all the time, is you can trim out all the ums and ahs, you can condense it down, make it a lot more tighter, a lot more punchier. I always say this, like, I don't care if you're giving me, the secrets of the universe or next week's winning lottery numbers. If you're sat on a stationary single angle talking at me for 3 to 4 minutes, it gets very boring very quickly, and people do have extremely short attention spans when it comes to social. So we kind of use things like pattern interrupts, editing, soundtracks, music, all these things to keep people the best way I can describe it is, think of your audience as having ADHD. That you want to kind of hook them in and keep them kind of watching and keep them on that treadmill. So you kind of constantly need to kind of mix up what's going on underneath to keep people engaged.
So what would you recommend people take from an editing perspective? What things would you recommend?
I recommend a piece of software called, if you've got an iPhone, one of the pieces of software that I recommend to most of my students is called Apple Clips. It's free to download. It's an Apple app, and it's probably the most simplest non-linear editor known to man. You just pick it up, record your shots, and then all editing is you're taking those individual clips and you're trimming the head and tail of them to tighten them up, and then you're just sequentially just kind of moving them around. That's in its simplified form all editing is really, but it allows you to kind of condense the shots, and it allows you to change things like framing as well. So you can kind of what I do is on a lot of my shots is I use jump cuts. So when I first started out, I think I was using 2 different cameras and then cutting between those 2 cameras just to give a bit of variation in the shots. And I was like, this is taking way too long, so I just started doing jump cuts instead, which are basically just, it's the same shot on the same angle, but all you do is just scale up the shot a little bit. So you've got a slightly tighter shot like that, and then a wider shot, and then you're just cutting in between those 2 shots.
And so and that does Apple Clips also does subtitles as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. That's one of my biggest bugbears. I still hate doing captioning. I've used tons of different captioning software, and any audio to text transcription service, it's never 100% accurate. You still have to go in and tweak it. But Apple Clips, the stuff you throw at it, it does it on the fly, and it does it for you, and it burns it into the video, and you can go in and tweak it if you need to. But I've very rarely seen it mess up. Really, it's fantastic, and the fact that it does it for you on the fly is just, yeah, it's a game changer. It's so easy to use.
Yeah, I use subtitles, so subtitle but with a Z as for my captions, which is a commonly used one. But I mean, you recommended Apple Clips the other day on LinkedIn, so I started experimenting with it, and it's a very powerful.
It's extremely considering powerful.
It's free.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's free and it's extraordinarily powerful for what it is, and it just gives you so much more control over kind of what you're doing, and if you're knocking out the kind of content that you expect to see on a lot of the time, people if you're kind of senior or kind of C-suite level, you don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours making video content. You want to kind of get something out there quickly that you can kind of leave up for a long bit, and that's the beauty of video as well, is that if you make a decent piece of content that has longevity, it's evergreen content, it's staying there as a continual piece of sales collateral. So having a decent video that you can kind of embed into your featured section is really, really important for LinkedIn.
So I know what I do with mine is I put them on LinkedIn, I'll put them on, I then tweet them out on Twitter, and I know you and I, we've both opened up TikTok accounts, and we're putting them up. So I mean, the fact is that you can take one piece of content and then put it into lots of different places. And in my view on TikTok was, if it gets watched by one person, it's one more than somewhere else. But I mean, it's amazing that the TikTok, in terms of the number of views that you can get. I mean,
there's a lady that I follow, a marketer, and she's only recently started on TikTok. I think she's only been going on there for maybe 3-4 months. She does fairly well on LinkedIn, but all she does is produce content on video content on TikTok specifically. And she had her first piece of content the other day go over 1 million views. So she had her first viral piece and that was in 3 months of producing content. So yeah, it's pretty extraordinary, to be honest.
There's a massive audience, and it's a different audience, and that's one of the things is about getting your content, getting used to creating a small piece of video content, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and look at this, we're not perfect, and getting it out on there, and then and getting people to watch it, and distributing it, and you don't need a big following.
No, you certainly don't. There's one of the things I recommend as well, and this is it's kind of my secret weapon in my training when I teach my students it. But thumbnails are hugely important, and they're hugely underrated on LinkedIn. I'm sure you've probably seen when you go on YouTube some really interesting thumbnails which kind of catch your attention and kind of hook you in. A lot of them are clickbait, but they work really, really well on LinkedIn as well, because don't forget, as you're scrolling through your feed, the thumbnail is the first thing you see before that video plays. And I'm sure you probably know this as well, but a video view only counts as a view if it's watched for more than 3 seconds or more on the feed on LinkedIn. So you have to work much harder to actually garner a view through video content than you do for a text post. So it's trying to grab that attention as they're kind of scrolling through the feed and hooking their attention again to actually click on the video is really important. But yeah, thumbnails are if you're not utilizing thumbnails, then you're dead in the water. get cracking with the thumbnails, because they're awesome.
A bit of eyeline there. Thank you. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. The 20 minutes goes so quickly, and thanks to the audience, Neil and Simon and Janet, basically coming on and asking questions. Thank you so much for that. And
pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Remind people where they can get hold of you.
LinkedIn. Just head over to LinkedIn. Do a search for That Video Nerd, and you'll see my big pink smiley face looking right back at you
with the sunglasses on his head.
With my sunglasses on my head. Yep.
Nick, thank you so much for today. It's been fantastic.
Pleasure. Cheers. Thanks.